Hello everyone, and once again, welcome back to another episode of FOF'cast, the podcast that likes to give it to you straight. Alongside my regular guests, Owen Smith and Gerry Pimm, today we are joined by serial tweeter and FOF poster Mike Gregg as we discuss a narrow 1-0 loss to Wolves, Fulham's quest to sign a centre-half, an unexpected addition, and we look at our chances going forward after the international break. After the really sobering podcast before Wolves, I think that we all might be feeling a little more positive, but you never know. Before we start, I'd like to introduce my guests. So start with you, Mike. How are you doing?
Yeah, hi Scott. Yeah, I'm doing well, working hard like many people, but trying to follow the football as well without actually being at the games. But yeah, not bad. Looking forward to talking to you guys about the game at the weekend and everything surrounding it and all the transfers and everything else.
Yeah, great stuff and good to have you on, mate. Gerry, how are you doing? Recovered from the last pod?
Yes, thanks. Yeah, all good. Thanks, Scott. Nice to be on with you and Mike and Owen.
Brilliant. Owen, finally to you. Keeping well?
Yeah, not too bad. Good to speak to you all, gents. Looking forward to this.
Good stuff. Right, so to get the show started, I think we'll start with Wolves or the Wolves defeat. Wolves won, Fulham 0. We dropped Hector. Anthony Robinson, Maxim Lamarche and on loan Torino defender Ola Aina all started, and I dare say looked solid in the first half, albeit both teams looked shot, and compared to the Spurs United game, the pace was akin to walking football. Areola made a couple of important saves, and we got in at half-time 0-0 and dare to hope. Second half went reasonably well until 56 minutes. A fluff clearance from Ream found its way to Neto, and we found ourselves behind. Lookman and Cabano came on after 67 minutes and both made memorable impressions for different reasons. Lookman was bright, taking on players, and a step up a break, which ultimately led to Kamara fluffing his lines. And that was that. So thoughts on the game? And I'll come to you, Owen.
Hey, Scott. Yeah, no, I think it was, first of all, before we come to the game, I think we were all pretty surprised to see the team sheet as it came in. I mean, none of us actually, I don't think seriously thought that Parker was going to be dropping Hector, but once it got past the initial shock of the lineup, I thought it was we looked solid in the first half. I thought both teams, as you said there, we were slow. So were Wolves. It was a really close game, and I think at halftime there was sort of real cause for optimism and almost hope that we might have got a point out of the game. It was nice to get more than 10 minutes into both halves without conceding. But, we've been saying it for a while. We really did lack the centre-half addition. And I think if we'd had someone established, someone who was sort of up to the pace of the game, that clearance from Ream wouldn't have sort of found its way to Neto for the goal. Positives, really thought that after us all sort of questioning the wisdom of bringing in and putting Areola in goal, I thought, he made 2 saves in the first half that quite frankly had no right to make. He kept us in the game. He was pretty impressive. I thought, although I didn't see the Brentford game, I heard a rather large number of disparaging comments about Olaina. I thought actually he didn't look dreadful. I thought Robinson had a solid game. So weirdly, after bashing on about the defence being substandard for the last month or so, we looked pretty good at the back. We really did lack for attacking options. I thought it was tough for Mitrovic to really get the ball and do anything really with it. I thought we looked devoid of anything through the middle and really sort of down the wings, and it was edgy. We did well to stay in the game. Lookman came on, looked really smart. Impressed with what I saw. It was the first time I'd seen him in a Fulham shirt, and I thought, his first touch, I think he turned player. That break that led to the Kamara shot that I think my mum might have done better with was the kind of football I haven't seen Fulham play for years. So that was quite exciting. All in all, I think probably it's not nice to lose, but we're not going to get carried away as we're still bottom of the table, 0 points, but room for improvement. But it's a step in the right direction.
Over to you, Gerry. Your thoughts on the 1-0 Wolves defeat?
Well, listen, we talked on the pod last week and said, we haven't got the options to drop Hector. Every one of us will think that he won't be dropped, despite how badly he was playing. So I think credit to Scott for actually making that tough decision without a lot of options. And someone on this pod called Maxime Marshall. I can't remember who that was, but he did play. And I think slightly harsh on a centre back might have stopped the Wolves goal potentially. Yes, of course it was a mistake, but equally everyone's going to make a mistake the odd time. I thought I agree with Owen on everything else, the sort of highlights, if you like. One I've not mentioned, I think, was I thought TC again played really well with Anguissa, and I think we're looking for scraps of positivity. I also think actually Robinson and Bryan linked up well. Actually, first time I've seen that sort of left back, left wing, if you like, covering each other and knowing how to do it properly. And I thought that'd be quite a decent combination, perhaps before transfers came up. One thing I would say, and sorry to be a sort of pantomime villain as I'm called, I know people are desperate for glimpses of hope here, and a little bit like the transfers. But listen, are our standards dropping? We've gone to Wolves, who are very out of sorts. Let's be fair, and we've lost 1-0. And people are sort of almost celebrating that like a victory, or like a non-league club had gone somewhere and got a real great result by just losing 1-0. Now, if we've got a Liverpool and just lost 1-0, yeah, I'd have thought, okay, but it was an underperforming Wolves side. And really, if we'd said at the start of the season, you get to game 4 and you'll be celebrating virtually just losing 1-0 to Wolves, I think we'd have thought there's a bit of trouble going on. So as I say, I know there are glimpses, people are desperate for glimpses of hope, and there was, for sure. And you have to look for little bits of positivity in a pretty terrible start to the season. But I just do wonder if that means our standards have dropped.
Mike, over to you, mate. What were your thoughts on the Wolves defeat?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot that's already been said, but I'll pick up on Gerry's point there, actually, about at the end there where people sort of celebrating it as a glorious loss. Yeah, I was critical of Hector being dropped, or not so much Hector being dropped, but the options of putting Ream and Marchand together, because I don't believe either of them are good enough at this level. But yeah, we did okay and defensively, but you would expect that after all the criticisms. That team had to dig in and defend and show that they're professionals, and they did that. But unfortunately, the goal sums up Ream in some ways. When he's in the box, I think it was the Brentford game as well, where he had a chance to clear, or game before, and he fluffs it, and he fluffed it again, and it leads to a goal. And unfortunately, at this level, if you're consistently going to make a mistake like that every game, you're going to get punished. And but Hector, maybe the manager Parker, I think, he took the decision, and he sees the players on a daily basis, and maybe just that one nutmeg against him at Brentford, it knocks the players' confidence. So maybe it was just take him out of the firing line as well. I did like the Bryan Robinson thing. I'm always a fan of those kind of pairings, but it's a sad indictment of where we are that Bryan's having to play left wing already. But TC and Frank playing, that's good. And yeah, we are looking for hope. But, even after the game, we've lost 1-0 and people suddenly think, oh, yeah, Marchand's the answer. Or, yeah, Ream did well. And it's just like, well, what are you on about? We still need these centre-backs, which, okay, we've gone out now, and we're going to talk about them later. But, it's still 4 losses in a row. And, if you're going to stay up, this game was a game you've got to try and pick points up. But, we had a chance with Kamara. He should have done better. I try and stick up for the guy all the time, but he really should have buried that. And Lookman does look class. And whether, I was surprised he didn't start. But I think if we're going to stay up, he's going to be a key player for us.
Yeah, no, it's some good stuff there, Mike. I totally agree about the mistakes that are constantly costing us. I think I had a bit of a discussion with somebody. It was was to do with with Ream and then a stupid flick by Cavalier. I mean, sometimes you've just got to get your foot in, whatever level it is, and just get rid of that ball. And we just don't seem to do that. We just seem to hang on to it and mess around quite a bit. All right, moving on to the next topic, the Wolves man of the match. So, based on the Friends of Fulham man of the match, Areola won it with 28.1% votes, with possibly his best displays so far. Weester was not too far behind in second, 26% of votes, and Lookman in third with 22.7% of votes. Would you say that was a fair reflection, and who impressed you on the day? And I'll come to you, Gerry.
Right. So just picking up on Mike's point there, which I thought was a really good point. I think we said in the last pod as well. Why isn't we all, I think, said, Lookman will start, ahead of Cav, surely. Now, whether that was part of the Wolves deal, can you please let him play against us? I don't know. But I mean, that was an odd one. I suspect we'll be watching him play a lot more. Man of the match. So if Areola is getting virtually 30% of the vote, that just shows that the goalkeeper man of the match means our glimpses of hope aren't that great. But he deserved to be up there, definitely, as did Anguissa. But again, maybe a bit biased to this. I thought TC deserved to be up there. I thought TC played really well. I think he has played really well with Anguissa. And actually, after these transfers, if he's going to be one left out, I think he'll feel very hard done by. So I don't disagree with what was put. I'd have had TC in the top three personally, but I'd have probably gone Anguissa overall.
Yeah, I mean, just looking back at the results, I mean, TC, this is the man of the match for Friends of Fulham, but I mean, he only picked up 2.5%, 6 votes. So
really? What, for Sunday?
Yeah, for Sunday. Yeah, he only picked up 2.5% of votes. He was literally lagging behind.
I don't know what the other guys thought. I thought he played really well, but then maybe I watched a different game. I don't know.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's different people's opinions. You look at different votes, and people vote completely different on different platforms. So, okay, Mike, coming over to you. Wolves man of the match. Areola won it with 28.1%. He's not too far behind the second with 26%, and Lookman in third with 22.7% of votes. Would you say it's a fair reflection? And who impressed you on the day?
Yeah, I mean, the goalkeeper, he did make the saves, and I'm in the camp that if a goalkeeper is made man of the match, then that pretty much sums up the game for you. Actually, I'm going to go for Robinson. I thought he was solid, showed what he can offer, and linked up well with Brian. And it's going to be a good competition between the two of them over the season. The good thing about when you have those kind of combinations is we know Parker likes to go to 3 centre-backs, and the question is, if one of them can go inside a little bit, probably Robinson because he's the taller, then you fall back into a back 5 and the other guy becomes the wing-back. So, but I like the look of Robinson. He's, I think we've picked up a real bargain there. So I would have actually gone with him. I agree on TC. I think he's playing within himself, I don't particularly like him playing too deep, but I think he's going to have to. He can't play the role he does in the Championship in the Premier League. He has to find a different way, I think, and maybe we saw signs of that on Sunday.
Okay, great. I mean, just coming back on Robertson, just looking on the poll vote there, he come in with 14% of votes. Okay, so over to you, Owen. Wolves man of the match. Once again, Areola won it with 28.1% of votes. Anguissa not too far behind is second with 26% of votes. Third with 22.7% of votes. Was it a true reflection? And who impressed you?
Yeah, I think I largely agree with Gerry and Mike in that respect. I thought Tonke did have a good game. I think Robinson looked really solid, but I think usually when you sort of pick man of the match, you're limited to one option. Areola made the saves I expected us to be under the cost sheet. You needed a big performance. I was actually really impressed with Anguissa. For such a big man, actually, he looks like a bit of a unit. Often he's been accused of not sort of putting it around and sort of being as sort of domineering as his frame suggests. But I thought he was I thought he was physically impressive on the pitch, but also he sort of demonstrated some real leadership. He was geeing up teammates and sort of really seemed up for it. And there was a weird moment watching the game where we were all sat together saying, this doesn't look like a player who wants to leave Fulham. And I think that's probably the first time I'd sort of thought that about him. And so I'd have gone for Anguissa because it looked like he'd sort of finally accepted that he wants to be part of this Fulham team and sort of try and keep us in the league.
Yeah, no, I agree there. And I think for Anguissa, I think this is a season where I think if he knuckles down and worthy, I mean, he also puts himself on a stage within the Premier League, in front of other teams, even if Fulham do poorly this season. So I think it's in his best interest. Right, moving on to the next topic now, transfers. So defenders, regular listeners will know that our favourite go-to topic has been Fulham's inability to sign a centre-back, especially for the season. So it was great going into Monday night's transfer deadline day, safe in the knowledge that we had two lined up in Jean-Claire Todibo from Barcelona and Timo. Help me with this one, Owen?
Baumgartel
from PSV. Todibo didn't fancy it and ultimately joined Benfica. And help me with this one again, Owen?
Baumgartel
had a medical and, according to Athletic, decided that he preferred it in Holland and didn't want to join Fulham as he wasn't guaranteed playing time. So then later in the evening, Fulham announced top target Joachim Andersen coming on loan without an option from Lyon. And Tosin, help me with this one, Owen?
Adebayo,
a player who badly wanted to join us on a permanent deal from Man City. So I'm going to come to you first, Mike. Your thoughts on the centre-back signings?
Yeah, well, I mean, I missed most of all the sort of speculation during the day as I was working, but the evening was filled with all the names as usual and enough mud being thrown at the wall, hoping some will stick. And in the end, we came up with the two centre-backs and the midfielder. I would have liked three, I think, but can't be greedy, I suppose. The two centre-backs are interesting, roughly the same age. At least one of them is permanent. I'm a bit concerned about how many loans we've now got. Again, I think it's 6. But yeah, the two centre-backs, I mean, they've got experience. Tosin has played in the Championship, but, not really proven in the Premier League, and we know how different it is to play at that level. Andersen, he's been at 2 good clubs and played in two big leagues as well. So it's going to be interesting to see, along with Hector, how those 3 sort of mix and match, or maybe all 3 are going to be seen together at some stage. So at least we got some on it, but they're unproven again, aren't they, in the Premier League? And I just wonder whether this year we should have really been targeting a more experienced player with maybe 100, 150 games under his belt and pushed in that direction. But it didn't seem as if we were interested in going that way. So yes, they're young. One of them's permanent. Hopefully both hungry to prove themselves, but unproven, and we're going to see very quickly whether they're up to it.
Okay, great. I mean, the Man City lad, I don't know too much about him. Obviously, that he spent most of his career at Man City, and I think he was on loan to Blackburn. But especially on sort of social media or whatever, quite a few Man City fans were gutted to see him leave. Especially for the price that it was. So it will be interesting to see how he comes on. But like you quite rightly say there, Mike, sort of inexperienced at this level. I don't think he's going to be one that's going to come straight in. And I probably would have preferred us to go for someone with a little bit more of an older head, maybe like Scott Dan or something like that could have come in and done, sort of a kind of a rock solid job for us, rather than sort of having to mix things about at the back and probably cause us some more problems. But look, over to you, Owen. Your thoughts on the defenders that we brought in?
Yeah, I think so. So let's start with the first bit. Hurrah, we signed some centre-halves finally. It took long enough. a couple of comments. First of all, I found it quite odd that given we don't want to loan players and develop other teams talent that we signed one player on loan. I think we've also signed in Tosin Adarabioyo, whatever his name is, from Man City. We signed somebody for the future, and we've sort of clearly found some value there, which is great. But I found it very odd to see the Joachim Andersen transfer described as our top target when you've had one player clearly come in for a medical and then decide he's had enough and he's heading back to Holland. We've got another player who it turns out Barcelona are pretty angry at for refusing to come here. There's a lot of mixed messaging there, but from what we know about the two players, I mean, Tosin Adarabioyo is tall. He's 6'5". He's played in the Championship. He's probably not lacking for physicality. I did text one of my friends who's a Blackburn fan. He said, decent. I was quite surprised at the price when I saw that it was sort of less than £2 million. I think that could be value, and I agree with Mike fully. I'd be very nervous if we're throwing him straight into the first game. He doesn't seem one who is ready-made to solve our defensive crisis, for want of a better word. Anderson, on the other hand, he's played at Sampdoria, he's played at Lyon. If you believe what the papers say about a year and a half ago, Arsenal were offering almost 50 million for him. I think it was a sort of 45 million bid. He was ultimately bought by Lyon for a sort of up to 37 million, and for whatever reason, it hasn't worked out for him. The bit that you read more and more about him, the bit that you see that he's really quite adept at is playing both right and left centre half, which is great. He can step into central midfield, that's fine. But bizarrely, the only real sort of stat you can find on him is he had the second best long ball pass accuracy in Serie A, which doesn't seem to tally into any of our playing styles. So that remains to be seen. But all in all, happy that we signed two centre halves. Very confused about the messaging around them joining. Very confused about the nature of the transfers and whether they have the toolbox we need at this time, which is experience, level-headedness, and sort of a bit of an ability to slot into our system, because we can't change it. We're 4 games into the season.
No, just what are your thoughts in regards to me? Top targets, and again another loan. I mean, I thought we were kind of in. We weren't in the kind of game for developing sort of other teams' players. And I mean, for me, it kind of says to me that he wasn't a top target. Maybe it was kind of, we sort of expressed most of our options, and he probably was somebody that come available towards the end. Do you think that at all, Owen, or?
I just think it's quite bizarre. I mean, I don't think anyone is sort of. I think people should just be open and honest. I mean, at the end of the day, we went into this Premier League season following our playoff final win against that team that play in the Lego Stadium, aware that we needed two centre halves, and for whatever reason we haven't been able to sign our top targets. We've had a number that go away. I think it's great that we signed two players. I think it's going to help, but we shouldn't really get too excited by it, because at the end of the day, these were what was available on what is in effect football's Christmas Eve. We were running around the shop looking for what was there, and we've got what we've got. And I think like all good gift recipients, we're sort of saying thanks, it's fantastic. We'll figure out whether we want to return it in the January sales.
Great. Gerry, over to you. Your sort of favourite topic, transfers. How do you feel that we done in the defence department? Do you feel we sort of fulfilled a gap there? Do you feel we could have done better? Could they have been earlier? Your thoughts?
Well, that was quite a nice analogy from Christmas Eve shopping. Let's be honest, that was our strategy from the start. It's not like you're going out in October and then you leave it to last minute. We actually decided to leave it to last minute because that's what we do. Look, I think if you'd said at the start of the season, we're not going to get a centre-back till the last minute, and they're going to be a 23 and 24-year-old, and they will be the ones we pin all our hopes on keeping us up, and they'll have no Premier League experience, by the way. I think people would have gone mad. When you name the names, suddenly all these experts come out of the woodwork. Oh yeah, I've seen him, I've watched him, and I know we do have some European people who really do watch genuinely. But I mean, I suspect most people hadn't even heard of these guys before. I think it's a huge amount of pressure on these two guys coming in. I mean, poor old Anderson, everyone's already thinking he's the next Hangeland. I mean, how many of them come along? And particularly, you know, even if you do come along, he had Roy sort of coaching him, or not coaching him, but being part of his sort of team. It's extraordinary, really. I mean, going back to the loanees that we're not in the business to look after people. It's just Tony's inconsistencies. He makes it all up as he goes along. Complete nonsense. Anderson, he says, top target for us. Top target. Well, you've left it to the last minute, and all these targets you said, oh, they've got COVID, they've got injuries, this, that, and the other, and suddenly this lad comes in at the last minute. And I have to say, good luck to both of them. I really hope they go well. But I cannot, and again, it's back to that glimpses of hope. Everyone's just desperate for anything, any scrap. The sort of excitement people have got, oh, this is a great window. It's all down to Scott. I think it's incredibly unfair on Scott, and I think it's incredibly unfair on these two. We all hope they go well, but they honestly, you know, it's a huge ask to ask a 23 and 24-year-old to walk straight into a Premier League side and be the stalwart of a defence that's going to keep us up against the best strikers in the world. I mean, you know, Tony's quote on Tosin was he received positive ratings from our data team. I mean, who actually says that? And he badly wanted to join us. All right, so he so badly wanted to join us, right, for 1.5 million, that it all happened at the last minute. I mean, come on, let's be honest. So, I mean, in a sort of trying to be positive, and I really hope they go well. I definitely support them. I'm definitely not going to criticise them. I never do before we've watched them. I know a lot of people do. But I think people have got very overexcited, and they're going to put a lot of pressure on these kids. In summary, we really should have got A, earlier signings, and B, those with experience in the Premier League, and we did none of that. And I think, actually, you know, and it's Tony's fault. He came out and said it. Oh, my first targets have let me down. They've got COVID. They've got everything. In reality, we've got people we didn't target, and they've come in at the end to almost be our saviours, and I really hope they don't get stick if they're not the saviours that some people are expecting, because it won't be their fault.
Yeah, no, and I kind of agree with some of that feedback. I mean, they're on a hiding to nothing when they come in. You know, they're going to come in on the back of sort of a 4-game losing streak. You know, sort of we've had a little bit of a kind of a down period or whatever, and these guys have got to come in and get settled. And you know, we've got this break to maybe kind of, you know, bleed them in a little bit. But yeah, it's straight back at it, and we've got, I think it's 4 important games coming up now, haven't we? Sheffield United. I mean, again, they're all winnable games that we've got to try and pick points up from, and we've got to see an improvement there. I mean, just touching on your thing about age, Gerry, even when Hangeland came in, didn't he come in, he was 27, and didn't he have a brief spell under Hodgson anyway?
Yeah, I think he had definitely played under Roy. I don't know his exact age, but it's a hugely different scenario with the lads now. I mean, I think he'd played probably over 200 league games wherever he was, and he had played under Roy, and you know, far more probably, if you like, an older head, and had played under our manager. And Roy brought him in because he saw him, he knew he was a leader. You know, by all accounts, this guy's been brought in because he came number 43 on our stats list and got the tick because everyone else had COVID. So I think it's a huge difference, and I think it's literally because where he comes from, everyone expects he's going to be the next Hangeland, which is a huge pressure for him, poor bloke.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Moving on to the next topic, and again, it's staying with transfers, midfielders. So, in true Fulham fashion, we left it late again, adding Ruben Loftus-Cheek from Chelsea, while keeping hold of both Siri and Anguissa. Safe to say, we're used to things going the other way, and this almost seems like good news. What do you think the signing of Ruben Loftus-Cheek will bring? How happy are you that we kept both Siri and Anguissa? And I'd just like to touch on Ruben Loftus-Cheek as well. I mean, he's supposedly on 150 grand a week, and I don't know how much of that we're covering. I'm not really sort of read into it. Signing off the back of an injury can make things happen for us. So I'm going to go to you first, Owen, and get your thoughts on the midfielders.
Yeah, sorry. On the wages, I found it incredibly rich watching Sky Sports News and seeing Harry Redknapp guffaw at someone's salary, given the number of clubs he's taken to ruin. I found that quite amusing. By all accounts, we're not even paying half of that. So if that's the case, then Fulham have actually done some good business. on the Ruben Loftus-Cheek side, I was actually pleasantly surprised. I didn't expect us to do anything other than try to sign centre halves on deadline day. This is a player who sort of in 2018-19 scored on his Premier League debut for Chelsea, scored a hat-trick in the Europa League. He really did impress until he sort of ruptured his Achilles, and really he's been out for the last year trying to get that sorted. There is, I think anyone who's listening to this pod and everyone I'm speaking to now, I don't need to explain how impressive he was at Chelsea and how impressive he was at Palace. If we have a player that sort of can live up to that, is fit, then we've clearly added something to our midfield, and welcome to the club. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, let's hope he's fit. Let's hope he's healthy. Let's hope he's wanting to be part of it. He clearly has a number of suitors in Europe, and Chelsea clearly view him as important. By all accounts, Bayern wanted to loan him with a €70 million option. This isn't a bargain basement signing. Actually, this is us leasing something high end, and let's hope we can use him. And on the Seri and Anguissa bit, I think we've all sort of realised how good Anguissa is and how good Anguissa can be. So the fact that he's still amongst our ranks, touch wood, he might still be sold to an English club. Let's hope that's not the case. Great. Seri, I suspect we will probably try to do something with him with regards to integrating him into the first team. To be ready if there's an injury. I can't see him sort of walking into the 11 or even into the matchday squad for the sort of the short term. But I think if you're Parker and you've got to believe he's learning sort of how to manage a squad of individuals and different personalities and different priorities, I think Parker would be quite silly to completely ignore his talent in the long run. So that's sort of it. Happy and lukewarm in player order, really.
Okay, great stuff. Over to you, Gerry. Your thoughts on the midfielders? Loftus-Cheek coming in, big salary, big wages, but I mean, I think we've got quite a good player there. What are your thoughts on that? And both keeping Seri and Anguissa.
Well, look, I think it's a good pickup. If he's hungry, if he wants it, he's clearly a quality player, and actually, I'll give credit for once to the club and Macintosh. If this is one, and there is a theory out there that we've only paid £45,000 a week for him. That's a hell of a good signing. So perhaps his last minute stuff has worked in that respect. Equally, they don't release anything like that, so he's probably spilled that out. I hope that we all believe it. Again, I'll go back to a Tony quote, which I thought was quite funny. He's a world-class player in the prime of his career. So he chose Fulham at the bottom of the league, yeah? Okay. So, but on the surface, on paper, he could be a really exciting addition, of course. But I mean, again, you have to ask, was that really a priority? Perhaps it was just an opportunity that came. And absolutely, it's a very exciting opportunity. And so I don't blame them for giving it a go. On the basis that it's not going to block what we really needed, like options up top. If we find out, we got him in and therefore we didn't have the money or whatever the dosh to get someone up top, then I'm not sure it'll be that clever of a move. And I think Owen sort of touched on this. I mean, there's a lot of central midfielders in there now, and you're going to start to upset people. Now, we do need depth of squad. I totally accept that. But really, we've already, I think, highlighted that we've got people in the dressing room who've got history of a little bit of trouble. Lookman, Lamina, Seri. I mean, and it's Montessori. I don't think he's going to feature. I really don't. I don't think he's welcome, frankly. And he's suddenly going to have a dressing room that Scott's going to have to deal with. It's got not only the people who potentially came with a bit of baggage that can create trouble, but also an unhappy dressing room. They dropped. There's got to be quite a few people dropped because they're not getting looking because we've suddenly got 8 centre midfielders. Tom Kenny might be one, for example. Anguissa we know about. We know when he left last time, his attitude was, I only want to play Premier League football. And so if he comes with the right attitude and does want to play for us and Premier League football, then he's definitely a bonus. So I think he will definitely be part of this squad. So in summary, I think, yes, the opportunity was there. This could be a really very good, exciting signing. Does it go into a domino effect of other things? I'm not so sure. It'll be interesting to see the balance of the squad at the end of the whole transfer window, including the domestic market, etc. But yeah, I mean, he's clearly a good player on paper. But I just hope it's not at the detriment of other things, sort of other elements in the whole grand scheme of things.
No, really good. You touched on some valid points there. Obviously, Mike, midfielders, obviously Ruben Loftus-Cheek coming in, Chelsea, and obviously we've managed to retain both Siri and Anguissa. So what are your thoughts on
that? Yeah, I agree. I actually think, he was the classic sort of late afternoon phone call. Do you fancy taking him for us for the season because we're not going to use him type? And he's just down the road. They can keep a check on him. And I mean, I remember seeing him play in the Youth Cup against us in the Youth Cup final when they beat us over 2 legs, and he was good then. But when you dig a bit deeper, he's had that injury. He's 25 in January, and he's played less than 80 league games. So yes, he's looked good when he's been fit and on a hot streak, but he's now trying to find that again, and we're the ones who are going to hopefully benefit, but it does bring a lot of problems. We have a lot of midfielders now, and yes, Siri, who there is a good player there. Whether he's a player who should be in the Premier League, I don't know. Maybe abroad would be better for him, but he's not going to get a transfer to the Championship, is he? So he's going to be around. And Anguissa I really like, and I have done since he joined. But then you add that to people like Reed, or both Reeds really, and Kearney, and you start wondering where they're all going to fit in. Onama, yeah, of course. I mean, he's reverted back to the way he was when he first joined. So, and we all thought he was Parker's, he's going to be there all the time, but he's shown no form at all this season. So, we're going to see, I suspect, a few offloaded to the Championship or elsewhere over the next couple of weeks. But, the concern is, again, I mean, one of my concerns, I looked at a team the other day, and the only person who'd come through the ranks of any kind was Rodek, the goalkeeper. And suddenly we've got a team of, we've got 6 loanees coming, all these other new players who've brought in. So, yes, we haven't spent £100 million this summer, but we have gone and bought another new team again. And was that the right way to do it? So did we learn the lessons? And I'm going to have to say no. Yes, we needed improving, but quite frankly, some of the money we spent on a couple of the other positions, we should have just concentrated on the centre backs and got them in earlier. Cavallero, Knockaert, all that. Yes, they've got their faults, but there are players, and we knew where we had weaknesses. So that would have been my strategy. But going back to Loftus-Cheek, yes, potentially a good player. Where he fits in, that's going to be interesting. We'll have to see how that plays out.
What is his? What is his actual natural position? I know he's kind of like a midfielder, but is he more of an attacking midfielder? Is he a holding midfielder? Does he sort of play sort of wide and nice?
I think he's box to box. I think he's quite he's an Anguissa type, isn't he? If I'm not mistaken. The others probably know better than me.
I mean, it depends who's managing. I mean, for me, he's an out-and-out attacking midfielder. I know when Sarri had him, he sort of played him as sort of left centre half, but he's a box-to-box player, as you say, Gerry. He's somebody who is going to play behind Mitrovic, I think, and sort of centrally control the show. He can drop a bit deeper. I don't expect him to sort of be playing in that weird false 9 position. He's going to be in the centre of our park.
Okay, great.
I can't see him and Onama being able to play in the same team. I think that would be quite difficult.
No, and I think someone brought that up the other I think when the transfer happened. I think Onama gets benched and he won't be finding himself a lot of game time now that Loftus-Cheek is here. But Will it push him? Maybe, I don't know. It might give sort of one of them the kick up the arse that he needs because, as you say, Mike, he's kind of reverted to like, and he showed glimpses towards the end of last season, but he's just come back very flat, hasn't he? He's not.
Yeah.
I think we were expecting to sort of push on this season. So let's see. Okay, moving on to the next topic, still staying with transfers, the domestic window. A domestic-only window, so basically transfers between English clubs, will remain open until Friday, October the 16th, which allows us to potentially add additional players. Ben Rama from Brentford and King from Bournemouth are some of the names we've been linked with. Additionally, there's the potential for a few still to leave Fulham in the likes of Kevin McDonald, Stefan Johansson and Anthony Knockaert. What do you think what do you think we should and will do? And is another striker top of our priority list? I'm going to come to you on this, Gerry. What are your thoughts?
Well, my first thoughts are, again, why would players want to come to us from the Championship? The reason they'd normally want to leave a Championship club to come to us is because they're good enough for the Premier League. So they've just come down from the Premier League. Now, if we'd done it early, they could have looked at us as a new project, something be convinced by Scott that we've got a chance. And now they're looking at it going, well, if I go to Fulham, I'm going to be back here in 12 months. Do I really want that? Let's talk through some people. I hear Benrahma. What are people talking about? There's no chance we're going to get Benrahma. So many things, let alone how much he costs, the fact he could do far better than us, and the fact that Brentford don't particularly want to sell him to us. Josh King's a funny one. I mentioned him quite a few pods ago, but it was interesting. Peter Ritzler, who does a really good job on the Athletics for them, he answered someone's question about Josh King, and he said, actually, he's one of these players who gets really stroppy unless he's your number 9. He wants to be a striker. He wants to be your number 9. Well, he's not going to do that for them, is he? So that could be out of our range as well. I don't know. There might be other players out there. What we certainly need is someone supporting Mitro in terms of both service and goal. So sort of winger, sort of come striker, whichever way you want to put it. On the other side of the coin, a lot of the old school will leave, which is sad but true. You've got to think Steph, you've got to think K-Mac and so forth. And I just want to touch on that. I think that's, much as it's inevitable and football evolves and moves on, I think Fulham fans really identify with that left team in so many ways. And I don't think we've done that since, and we probably won't for a number of years. So that'll be a really sad time when they all go. And I know we can't have emotion in football, but it's worth touching upon when they go. I really hope that Fulham do a proper goodbye rather than sometimes a one-liner that just say, yeah, let's see you later. And I think almost the most, it's not amusing, it's just ridiculous. But I think Knockaert or Cav or even Decadori, although I've got to say I think Decadori surprised me a bit this year, but I think they're getting one or two of them are going to have to go, if not leave on a full signing or a loan or something. And it just makes it more laughable that we spent 30+ million on them just a few months ago. We all knew, I think, to a person, they weren't going to be good enough for the Premier League, but we did it anyway. So yeah, I mean, we need definitely backup for Mitro in some shape or form, and unfortunately, we're going to lose a few. I think again, you guys are more the statos than me. You have to name a 25-man squad in a couple of weeks, and we've already got 29, and there could be more if we do get sort of a couple of signings in. So you're going to have to lose quite a few people unless you leave them on the bench. And someone like Gerry, for example, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised by the end of maybe I'm being a bit harsh here, but by the end of but when it gets to Christmas, he might be stuck with the youth team told to train there, because I don't even think our dressing rooms are big enough, are
they? No, and I mean it's. Just look at some of the reports today. I mean, there's all rumblings now about Knockaert maybe going off to Forest on loan. Steph Joe, I think, reacted to a video online today. And I think there was rumours of obviously Kevin McDonald obviously going as well. I mean, the bottom line is, whether we survive the season or go down, this batch of players are going to become sort of a year older, and it's to bounce back again. with them same players, I think is going to be more difficult. So, I mean, you've got to kind of look at clearing the decks, I think. And you tied down other players like Josh Onoma, the lad from Man City. So you kind of improve quality there when you go down. And you still got the others like Knockaert, Cavallero, Bobby Reid all under contract. So assuming, and even Rodak in goal, so assuming you've got good core players there and a lot younger for when, and if it does happen. So, I mean, that's my thoughts on it. Coming over to you, Mike, I mean, domestic window, I mean, what do you think, what do you think is required? Who's going to go? Give us your thoughts.
I agree. We definitely need a striker as a backup, because if we go with what we have and Mitro gets any kind of injury, and yes, people can come and say, yeah, we do well when he doesn't start. I'm sorry, you need him for the season. But the trouble is, who are you going to get? Who's going to come along and play second fiddle, really? Because that's what they would be doing. And so I don't think we're going to be able to get one of the main strikers available from the Championship. I agree about King. I've read before as well that he's, he just wants to be the main man, and lots of strikers are like that. But I think we might end up with an old head from one of the other teams who's played in the Premier League. I mean, I couldn't give you a name, but that's what I'd be looking for, I suppose. But yeah, I think the requirements we have over the next couple of weeks to, well, less than that actually, but to get rid of, 4 or 5 of the squad plays back to the planning again. It's the haphazard way that we've sort of signed these players, and things being said about not signing loans and developing other players yet. There we are on the last day getting 2 players who we are going to develop in some way, even if it's just giving them more games. So, and it will be sad to see people like McDonald go and Johansson almost certainly. But teams evolve. But I agree, there are ways to handle things, and hopefully we do it well. But it's going to be down to Parker for the team spirit, I suppose, and trying to mix this up and find the right way to play. I mean, it's with all those midfielders, we're going to, and none of the wingers really working. Do you end up playing, 4 or 5 central midfielders, and because that's what it looks like could be, and poor old Mitro on his jacks up top. But yeah, I think we definitely a striker. If we're only going to bring one person in, that's what we need is someone back up for Mitro.
Yeah, and I have to agree there. I mean, that is, just coming back to it, that is my only concern. If, like you say, people say, we played better without Mitro, and that is a load of rubbish. I mean, he's one of the first on my team sheet every single week. Whether he's having a quiet game or a busy game, he always pops up with important goals. And last time he was in the Premier League, he still got I think it was 10 goals in a very, very poor Fulham side. If you can add a decent distribution to that, I mean, maybe you get getting sort of 12 to 15 goals. But Mitrovic does play a certain way, and you've got to kind of, for me, sort of build your team around him. And we're not doing a lot of that. And I don't think we utilise Mitrovic for his strengths. Our wingers are not doing a lot. We're not putting, obviously, balls in for him. And our wingers and midfielders are not chipping in with goals either. So we're kind of relying on Mitrovic, and we can't do that. Like you say, he's first on the team sheet every week. What striker is going to come in and obviously play second fiddle to him? Not a lot. So we've got issues there, but we do need somebody that's kind of scoring as well as him, I think, if we've got any kind of chance to survive this season. That's just my personal thought. But over to you, Owen, your thoughts. Domestic window, who's going, what do we need? Give us your thoughts.
So what do we need? We need, I think we all watch the Wolves game. We know what we need. We need another striker. We need somebody who can play either with or instead of Mitrovic, who I fully agree with all 3 of you. He is sort of the first name on our team sheet, but also, any team is only as good as it is with 3 injuries. If he's one of those injuries, do I think we have a cat's chance in hell of staying in this division with Kamara playing up front? Absolutely not. So the first thing we do need to think about is, domestic window, who was, and I can't give you a name, I'm sort of saying the same as Mike here, who of the sort of Premier League teams or the teams that were just relegated have players that may or may not be surplus, may or may not be surplus to requirement that we can work some magic on and say, come join us. We do need something up top, and if I think it's unlikely, but I the names that are most heavily linked to us, Benrahma and King. I sort of asked the question here, guys. I mean, if it were me and there was a fee that was available and it wasn't extortionate, I'd probably be happier for Fulham to sort of break the bank and play 20 to 30 million, like I think we probably should have gone towards for Watkins, for someone like Benrahma, and give us a chance than sort of sign Danny Welbeck on a free transfer. What do you guys think? And I'll sort of leave that open, maybe as a quick one for Scott afterwards. But the other bit on Kevin McDonald and Johansson, I think they will end up leaving. I'm really disappointed that we haven't sort of looked at Kevin McDonald and said, you are what made us sort of back to the Fulham that we all know and love when we ended up getting promoted under Jokanovic. I think we all know who the real leader in the dressing room is. I think it's I think I've spoken to Mike about this in the pub, but I've also sort of my dad as well. That picture of McDonald in the dressing room post playoff final against Villa is sort of so memorable and iconic. And I thought that the influence he brings to the dressing room, even when he's not on the pitch, you can sort of see it. And I would have preferred to have kept him around, but I think we probably will lose McDonald. I think we will lose Johansson. I think that as Gerry mentioned, we should definitely do what we can do as fans to sort of say thanks. It'd be nice for the club to give more than one line, not of appreciation. I think we'll end up sending Knockout. He wasn't involved against Wolves. He played pretty poorly against Brentford. He was on the bench against Villa. For whatever reason, it hasn't worked out. He was an exceptional player at Brighton, and I think we were all pretty excited when we signed him last year. But for whatever reason, something hasn't clicked with Knockout, and I think something might have clicked with Parker. I wouldn't be surprised to see him leave.
Yeah, just touching on that, can I just touch on that McDonald thing though, Scott, Owen? I agree with you. He's a real person in the dressing room. That Slav squad was so together, wasn't it? It was just such a great squad of people. And I'm not sure now that actually McDonald would be... I love McDonald, don't get me wrong, but as influential. Because I think that dressing room now is a completely different set of characters. You don't really have not come up together, and all that sort of stuff. So I don't think the influence actually would be as important, much as I love K-Mac. I'm not sure now people would listen to him as much as they might have done a couple of years ago, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean that does make sense, because that's what I was touching on about, lessons learned. We've gone and done it again, but not for £100 million, whatever it is. But we've still brought in 12 players or somewhere in that region, and so it's it's all change again, isn't it? But McDonald, I mean, to be fair to him, he might look older, but he's only 31. And, he's still got a lot of games left in him. But he reminds me, I suppose, you remember when Coleman was injured and, he was still such an influence around the club, and they brought him onto the bench when he was injured. But that's how I sort of see McDonald in some ways, But I think you've got a fair point there, Gerry.
Yeah, that's some good stuff. And just before we move on to our last sort of topic, because I'm cautious of time, I just want to touch again on what Owen said in regards to the actual striker situation, because I think it's important that you all kind of give your sort of feedback on it. I mean, if you looked at kind of strikers out there that would come in, a lot of the older heads, they've kind of moved on because they want sort of game time. So, I mean, even if you look at like the Welbecks and like a few others out there, who's the other chap from Watford?
Deeney.
Yeah, Deeney, someone like Deeney or whatever. They're still going to want to come, and they're going to want game time, and they're just not going to get it over sort of Mitrovic.
And game time, and they don't come with a great attitude, those two, I don't think.
No, I totally agree. So would you, I've sort of looked at this kind of move. I mean, would you go for someone like Carlin Grant or something like that at Huddersfield? He's a local boy. He's still young. He's got something to prove, and he's maybe someone that wouldn't mind probably coming off the bench or sort of playing, behind Mitrovic. I mean, would you go down them sort of routes?
I don't know enough about him, but I would say I'm not sure how much money we got. Going back to Owen's point about Watkins, and of course Watkins came onto the scene in terrific style against Liverpool, and his question, right, a good question, is would we have gone all out and spent that money? Now I could sit there in hindsight and say, yeah, of course we should have done that, totally calm. But I'll be very honest, I didn't think he was worth that sort of money. I thought it was a big, massive risk at that sort of money. Was it 28, 30 million in the end? Mm-hmm. Even 32, I can't remember. Now, clearly, I might well be wrong here because he's proven it against Liverpool. But at the time, I'm not sure I would have said that's the best spending of 30 odd million. However, it looks like I'm pretty wrong there. But I suspect there are others out there who, like Scott said, who've got the potential to be fantastic in the Premier League for not as much money. And it's the type of people that Brentford look for and all these other clubs, but we don't tend to look for potential, do we? So it's quite a tough one there.
Yeah, I think that's the issue. I think we don't kind of scout players like that. It's a risk. I mean, I would hold fire there with Watkins, mate. I mean, I think even Knockout would have had a field day against Liverpool's defence that day. They were terrible. I mean, we've seen it obscurely done by sort of people when they drop off for the season. So I'm gonna hold judgment on that one myself. Right, moving on, guys. So the season in whole, the next topic. I think we really missed an opportunity again by leaving it late to sign players. But as a result, in a couple of weeks until the Sheffield United game, and integrating the new signings, how do you see the season planning out? Are we still doomed, or is there cause for cautious optimism? And I'm going to come over to you with this question, Mike.
Well, I mean, I look at it now, and I tweeted it as well. I see it as a 34-game season now. You know, we've got no points. We've got to be the 14th, 15th best team for the rest of the year. So are there, 5 clubs worse than us? I don't think we're going to stay up. I mean, everyone will point to Palace, but the fact is you lose your first 4, you're playing catch up. We're going to be playing catch up for quite a while now. And yes, you might only need 36, 38 points, but that seems an awful long way away as it stands at the moment. And so no, I don't think we're going to stay up. Next few games, we've got, when you looked at the fixtures, and we're coming up with Sheffield United, Palace, West Brom, West Ham, Everton, Leicester, and then we reach Man City. So, next 6 games, with the next 4, what are you looking at? You need to start thinking, got to win at least 2 of the next 4, just to get points on the board, really. But we've got a break. I don't think many of the players are away. It's going to give Parker a chance to get match fit, get his ideas into them. And then, it all kicks off again with a team that's struggling as well. So, that Sheffield United game is going to be going to tell a lot, partly from what Parker sees on the training ground with the new players and, sort of his tactics going forward.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you there. I mean, we've given ourselves a bit of an uphill battle. I mean, we lost the first 4. Again, we've got like another sort of 4 games we've got to be picking up. Obviously, not maximum points, but we've got to be picking up points there, and we've got to get draws where we don't expect them. And like any sort of Premier League season, I would like to see us take the odd scalp, and that's kind of where you kind of pick up your points to stay up. I think we've given ourselves a bit more of a fighting chance, but I still just don't think we've done enough. We brought in the defenders again, not Premier League ready. I still think there's going to be a few mistakes and a few tears before we start to settle. But by then, I do think it's going to be a little bit too late for us. I just think we've come to the party late again. But that's just my opinion. But look, come over to you, Gerry. The season now that these players have been added. I mean, what's your thoughts on the rest of it?
I think we're doomed. I think we've left it too late. We've got to catch up. We've got to integrate players. Just not got enough experience at the back with the two newbies, in my view. We've got not enough firepower. So when we get to the end of the season and if we go down, people say, well, you were all happy with the transfer window. Can you count me out of that one, by the way? Because it seems so many people are so delighted with this transfer window. And I think they're in cloud cuckoo, that person. And I think that leads on that fans will turn on Scott. Because they'll say, well, Tony delivered. And I think that's a nonsense. Absolute nonsense. What he delivered was too late. Even if they turn out to be great players, and they might, some of them, it's not enough in my view. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm not sure I will be. We always look back. Can you name 3 worst teams? I think the one optimism we might have is we might just about get above West Brom. But for me, that's it. I think another complication could well be, and I know Scott, and as you all know, I'm a big fan of Scott, and I know he sort of rates himself about being a good man manager because I think he has a great reputation for that. But there's a hell of a dressing room he's going to have to manage now. We touched it earlier. Not just the sort of players who've had history of troublemaking, but those who are now being left out because we've got all these midfielders, for example. I think it's going to be a real tough dressing room to manage, and that's not easy when you're trying to fight to stay up with no points. But I can't see it personally. I hope I'm wrong, but according to Tony Carr, we died to be a yo-yo club, so perhaps it doesn't matter.
Well, maybe we are all going out for Ben Rama and someone like Ollie Watkins, because I see that Shad had his yacht up for sale today. Did you see that?
I'm not saying that.
So maybe we have fallen on sort of hard times. But no, you're right there, Gerry. I mean, you picked up something quite interesting there. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't a particular fan of Scott last season. I didn't think, he was the right kind of calibre. I've warmed to him a little bit. I still think he's raw. And there is a good manager, I think, somewhere in there. Whether, it goes beyond this season, but, there will be fingers pointed at some point, if we start to lose the 5th, 6th, 7th game, when players have been brought in, then the manager always cops it. But you touched on a valid point there where this is also new territory for Scott, because in his managerial career, I mean, obviously he got used to last season. He worked with that kind of calibre of player, that sort of dressing room. And now you brought him into an environment, obviously, where you've gone up a league and you've brought all of these personalities in together and you've gone, right, manage that. And you've got to manage the disappointment of players being left out, sort of new personalities coming, big time charges, big money and stuff like that. And all that is going to take its toll, I think. And we've got a massive mixed bag there this season. There's got to be a lot of options, a lot of choices made on top of trying to sort of make sure that we finish 17th or above, So, coming over to you, Owen, the season, your thoughts on it and how do you think it's going to pan out?
I mean, it's going to be really tough. Really tough. As we say, we've given ourselves an uphill challenge here. We've sort of gone into the season with a 4-game handicap. We signed a load of players where we're going to have limited time to work with the squad. Don't forget, we've got a fair proportion of our players are internationals, so won't be around between now and the Sheffield United game, which leaves Scott with a bunch of players to work with and the potential for people returning and then having to go straight into a first-team lineup with someone they've never met before, which I guess isn't ideal. If we're looking for positives, we look at the table, median number of points anyone's got is 3 points. We're playing the team that are as bad as us in Sheffield United, the only other team in the league that haven't led a game this season in the Premier League. Whilst I'm not entirely optimistic, and I think it's going to take time for our team to gel to get to the magic 36, 38 points, we're going to have to win 12 of our remaining 34 matches. Do I see us doing that? Quite frankly, no. Do we have the talent within the squad to do it? Could be an interesting debate for a future show. I think, individually on paper, we have a lot of good players. Whether they're going to have been given the opportunity to come together as a team, we will find out. In short, I don't think we've got enough there. I don't think we've had enough preparation time, which is partly down to poor recruitment, but we also have to acknowledge there was a very, very short period between getting promoted from the Championship to where we are now. I think one of the big, I think it's a massive game. We can't understate it. That Sheffield United game is going to be key. If we win it, then there's a completely different mentality in the room. You've got we signed new players. We've gone out with a new sort of approach. We've won a game. Look at us. We've got a chance. Maybe a bit of swagger in the step, and you never know what happens with a bit of momentum. Lose that game. We played 5, lost 5, and we become a team of serial losers. And that's the biggest risk here. I think we are 1 or 2 defeats away from doing a derby.
I mean, where we are. I mean, with what we've just signed, would any of us swap? Sorry, would any other club swap our squads for theirs in the Premier League?
Probably not. Probably not. But if you look at it sort of on paper, we came up through the playoffs. We should have on paper the weakest squad. If somebody was looking at it, we're going to lack for experience. We're going to lack for big game players. I suppose what we need from our team is a degree of solidity that, like Sheffield United had last year, where your system, you have conviction and confidence in your players, and you're at least prepared to give it a shot. Unfortunately, I don't think any of us have confidence and conviction in our players that we came into this season with.
Yeah, and I think it's a case we knew before the whole centre-back situation. Come up with the Reams and the Doyes last time, and it's no disrespect to those guys. I mean, Reams just turned 33. We know that Doyes, as much as a good club servant that he is, they're just not good at this level. And we took a punt on Hector. I mean, my thoughts on him that he was never really settled at Chelsea. They never used him, and he was loaned out. Sort of more than enough times to get game experience, but never ended up at that level. And we've effectively again started the season with a championship back four, and again we thought it was good enough, and we've succumbed to it. And unfortunately, I think it's mistakes not learn, and I think that's going to come back to bite us personally. Look, guys, we've run out of time, unfortunately, and come to the end of the show. But I'd just like to say thanks to my guests, Gerry, Owen, and Mike, for joining us today. Hopefully, Mike, you'll come and join us again at some point. Until the next time, thanks for listening to FOF'cast.